Good day, everybody that is listening. Thank you for joining me another time. I have today Donna Teuber. I'm so excited that I have you here. We met each other, I think, a couple of years ago. We had a talk also online, like we did now, and you were talking about your business and about your learning. And I was really curious to what makes learning and how does play fit in there, and a thousand more questions. But first, I would like to say, Donna, I'm so happy that you're here and that you made time for us to give us a little bit insight in your world. But before we start all that, can you tell us a little bit, because I know, but my listeners don't, can you tell me a little bit who you are and where your house stays and what you do?
Sure. Well, thank you, Martijn, for having me and offering me this opportunity to just chat with you about all things related to education and how facilitation and how I use the Lego series play method. So, my background, I started out really as an educator working in school districts, and I think I've always just had a passion for, how can I work with adult learners too? So in much of my work, I moved into professional learning, right? Working with teachers and providing professional learning throughout school districts. And then, I don't know, at some point I became enamored by technology and I was good at it. And so my job evolved quite a bit over the years to working more with educators, technology, and just, in general pedagogy. Like what are good learning practices? How do we really provide the best learning experiences for students as well as adult learners? And so I became, I think, much more into facilitation and coaching. And I think they always say you get to the level at which you're really doing great, and then you move to the next level where you have a big learning curve. And so, eventually I did move into an instructional technology director role in a larger school district. And I had the opportunity there to learn what I don't know. And I learned how how many responsibilities, in a school system there are for all the different people who have learning needs. And how do you meet those needs? How do you deal with the bureaucracies and systems that are really resistant to change? And
Oh,
how do you
really?
do
In school
it?
systems, they are resistant to change.
Yes, just
They must
like
be unique. All the rest of the world says, yeah.
yes, just like all the other organizations I think we've worked in. Definitely there's some resistance. We know this way works and the stakes are pretty high to try something new. And so from there, I think it evolved into me advocating for an innovation role. And I had the really great support of leadership who wanted to do something different to foster innovation, to find a way to, bring out the best ideas in our organization, solve some of our systemic challenges. And
Mm.
so we put together this innovation incubator, and I was able to, advocate for a job role change, and I became an innovation program designer. We wrote the job role, and then, believe it or not, more problems happen. You think you're in an innovation role, but then you're actually in a very strict project management role too, right?
Yeah.
And you're in a role where you have to work with people at different levels. You've got to get sponsorship. You've got to get people at the top level to invite you to the table. You've got to work with educators. I was working with a lot of educators saying, "What are your great ideas? Can we bring them to something at scale? And can we really, support this throughout the district?" And so I was doing a lot of like red tape cutting, we call it, or
Yeah.
roadblock moving. And so, from my perspective, I think it all seems shiny on the outside, but really innovation is hard work. It's hard work to get sponsorship. It's hard work to get the people who really want that change in a position where they can advocate for themselves, where they feel like they have some autonomy, some safety. And so it's all those things together, as well as, how do we finance it? How do we prototype it? How do we scale it? And so what happened was I started a lot of facilitation. So I
Yeah.
using the design thinking method, human-centered design. So having the opportunity for all those years to bring together different teams and really get to the challenge for them, help them to see what is their core need, what is the problem, the challenge, and then from there, what do we need to learn? Who do we need to talk to? Going into, just that whole inspiration phase, interviewing people, really understanding the challenge, using different strategies like systems mapping to figure out like who are my stakeholders and what are the mindsets and behaviors that we're trying to solve for. So, that's a really deep process and you need a lot of time for that, right? You can't just jump to solutions. And so I think that there was quite a lot of just me advocating for time. We need people to be able to dive into their challenge, to understand it, and it can't just be something that happens overnight. And
Yeah.
so, with the design process, yeah, that discovery phase takes a long time.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's moving into the next phases. So facilitation was really important to me, and I needed to learn what are some strategies and methods for that.
Yeah, cool. I want to also know how you started with Lego, but the quick question you speak about two things that sprint out in my brain. I would say human design and human centric design and design thinking. What is for you what is human design? What's human centric design in learning? Because for me, that would be super interesting for our agile coaches and scrum masters. I'm pretty sure they would need to know something about it as well. Could you have like a small side step and explain that to me as well?
Well, I think in the context of adult learners, and I think we can all think back to when we were in school, right? And we had great learning experiences.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, what were you doing? What is a great learning experience from your childhood? What do you remember about it?
I think for me, the great learning example for me was that I had a teacher that I had one teacher that was less focused if I wrote it right. I'm dyslexic, but she gave me the possibility to use everything that I had to my learning. So I'm a very tactile learner,
Mm.
and she allowed me to stand in the class and feel what we had to do, and then it all stayed in my brain, and I didn't have to write it down, and I just knew it by heart. And
Uh,
she elicited that, and that was really good for me.
Yeah, so she customized it for you, right? She personalized it. And I think that if I think back to my, early learning, it was definitely hands-on. It was when I had a project, and I'm still very much into project-based learning, but when I could go and do something and try it and I could learn from my mistakes and I didn't get a grade based on the final product, but more on the process. I mean, I think those were the best learning experiences for me. I still remember just trying to build things and I wasn't really good at it, but it was that whole process of building and learning. And so I think when you talk about, human-centered from a, educator perspective, and I was actually building models today, but I think a lot of times we're sort of chained. I did like I don't know if you can see it, but we're sort of chained to that tower of like this is the way we have to do things. This is the way
Yeah,
we've always done it. And it really requires a new lens, right? To be able to get some transparency and feel safe and have a process and a method, which could be pedagogy. I mean, in this case, I was thinking of like Lego Serious Play, the method, but it could also be just good instructional design, right? And having that in front of you to really break free from, this method that doesn't really work that well.
yeah,
And so, customizing, personalizing, and really knowing, sort of what it looks like when you're
yeah,
successful. So, yeah, so that was just a model I was just kind of building around, what the challenges are, but yeah, so I think in the class, so as adult learners, the same thing applies. We want autonomy. We have a challenge we want to be able to apply to our own work. We don't want to just sit and get, is what we called it in school, where people just tell us what we need to know and we take notes and we forget it. We want follow-up. We want to be able to have, the opportunity to try things, to break things, to learn from feedback, and, to get out there and do something that's going to be meaningful for us. And so I think, human-centered design is all that, right? And it's just about adult learners and how we can best learn and best go out and accomplish our own passions and missions. And so, back to the method, I think just, as a design thinking facilitator, you're looking for different methods. What are some different ways that we can bring the team together, that everyone's voices can be heard, that we have the opportunity for people to maybe have opposing viewpoints, but actually get something done instead of those meetings where I think, corporately, I think having been in a lot of meetings, it's typically, and you're agile, so maybe you can explain some better methods, but a lot of times it's just go around the room and everyone shares. And while one person's sharing, the other person is like secretly on their phone, they're checking out. And really there's no value, right? It's people working in silos, maybe showing up to share and then going back to what they were doing before.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of people, so for me, that human-centric design really resonates with me. When I think of my job as also as an agile coach and a scrum master, we very often tend to be stuck in that chain that you show there, like this is how we have to tell them, and we do it this way, and we always did it this way, while we would get angry if a person say to us, oh, I do this because I always did that. And then we go like, it's time for change. And for me, that is a super interesting topic. How can you make it more around the human that you're teaching and what is the need? And yes, I see also that in a lot of organizations, people tend to have such a high demand on themselves and from the organization that they also feel like, they don't have time and they don't have energy for this. So that makes me, like, for example, super curious, like, you are in a world, for me, if I look at that world, right, education, it is thought out maybe already 100 times. You are really in this strict chain almost around, like a noose around your neck. And then still you find the time and the energy or the inspiration or something to go like, I want to do this different. Because apparently at a certain moment you find also Lego serious play.
Yes.
How did that happen? And do you use it then still, or was it a one-time thingy and that's it?
No, actually, I discovered it during that whole process when I was running the incubator, and I was part of a more, I don't know what you call it, like a think tank group. And we had a lot of opportunities to get together at Google offices and do a lot of really interesting design thinking activities. And someone brought the starter kit.
Wow.
That we had the starter kits for one of our sessions, and it wasn't really used in I would say, the method that I've learned, but it was there, and I was intrigued by how much it helped me to articulate what I was thinking. And I was intrigued by just the possibility of, could I bring this to the teams that I was already working with? Could this be something that could be one more thing that we could have in our toolbox, and a method that we could explore in greater depth? Because at the time I had also a really nice situation, which was that I could bring people out of the classroom for a day. It might be in the summer, but I could have a full day. And I think one thing that facilitators struggle with quite a lot is people don't have enough time. You can't introduce a really great challenge to a team and give them time to dig into it with 1 hour or 2 hours. 3 hours isn't great. And it happens with team building too, right? You get asked quite a lot. Well, we only have time for some team building. Well, there's, in my view, team building should always be for a greater purpose, right? So you should have a different goal rather than we're just going to have fun together. I mean, that's great. But I think there's always a deeper goal with facilitation, and to really get the value for it, it requires time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that's really important to me, is just, and why it worked out so well, is that I was able to bring people together for longer bits of time, a day or 2 days, to really start building together and to build that foundational knowledge of everyone sharing, understanding what their challenge is, creating those shared models. And then from there, really just being able to go out and say, like, what's going to help us to be successful? What are our challenges? What are our, weaknesses? Where do we need to go with this? I love the, playing out scenarios with systems thinking, with, building a system and then breaking a system by running different scenarios. And I think, that's definitely a part of systems thinking. So this is just another, for me, it's a method that really has its place, but you have to have enough time for it. And so I'm thankful that I've, have had so many opportunities where I had the people in the room for that amount of time. And we'll just go ahead and show another model. I think half of it just fell on the floor. But for me, it's always the facilitator sort of, here, right? And the people are the ones around the table. I always say that you're this my guiding principle. You're all the smartest people in the room. I'm just here to facilitate what the magic is happening, and the tools that can help you get there. And then sort of in the background is sort of my little knowledge, right? This is the knowledge, the understanding that I come in with based on experiences. And it's sort of like just there parallel with me, helping me to facilitate and guide this process. And it's just it's a magical time when you're able to step back. And I think we've all worked with consultants or been consultant in the consultant phase, where we're asking people, telling people what to do, or we're more in a role of influencing the system as opposed to supporting the system. So I really think, just that's really important, the role of the facilitator and how you interact with people. But it's a gift to have the time and the right number of people in the room, and to facilitate a process like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said, that you want to let the genius in the room get out, and you have to do a step back, because it reminds me of what my grandfather used to say. If you are the smartest person in the room, you probably want to get out very quickly because it starts to smell. And yeah.
I love that. Right. That is true.
Yeah. But that's interesting. But you say, I think a very true word as well is that it is difficult to get people for that longer period that we all understand is needed in a room, because we are so I would almost say addicted to our work, that we think our work cannot even it would stop evolving for if we would leave it for 10 minutes. The funny thing is, we Europeans will go 3 weeks on summer holiday. That is not a problem, but to go on a 2-day course is like, it's way too long. But that is a different story. But for me, I was wondering, what do you do? Because I think a lot of our listeners find that super interesting. I have a strategy, but I'm curious to, what is your strategy on my word would be seducing them to go into a 2-day or a day training or a workshop with you?
Yeah, so I think that's the big question, right? How do we get people into the room? And if you're not in a position in an organization where you can just schedule it and make it happen, right, and pay for it, then you definitely are up against some pretty tough competition because, what I've seen, even with companies having retreats, or it might be in education, summer professional development, 2 days of learning where everyone gets choice. Usually the choice is a 45-minute session. So advocating for even an hour and a half, a lot of times when people are so structured,
Yeah,
or as I said, with corporate, it's more, where can we squeeze this in? Because now we also have to go into these other meetings and do other things because we have to justify having this time. And so, it really all goes back to just make those relationships, right? It goes back to having other people who can advocate for you and say, do you know Donna? I mean, that's always worked really well for me. I think it's hard when you're just out there trying to offer a service and people don't really know who you are. So I think it's definitely, people knowing somehow who you are and being able to share that out, but then getting that face to face, even if it's via Zoom or, some sort of connection where you can actually just begin to talk with them. And then what I normally find is that there's always a middle person, right? That you talk to first. Like they're
yeah,
feeling out to see what can we, who's there, how much does it cost, what can we do? And they have really good intentions and so, that's always the first connection usually. And then just, from there, being able to explain the process clearly, to understand their needs, I think is so important that then you get the greater audience. Then you might get the leadership team to come in and spend that time with you. So I would say it's just a challenge in terms of timing and getting everyone on the same page with what the outcomes should be. And you go slow to go fast. I mean, I can always say if we can go slow and plan this well, and you have this big challenge for your team, that challenge it can go away
yeah,
if you can spend enough time with your team together during this retreat time, to hear everyone's voice, to actually build some outcomes, and then to think about your next step. So um, as you just heard, it's like a lot of words, but I think that's what it is just making those connections and connecting to their purpose.
yeah.
So
And I think
provide a better service.
Yeah, and I think what you say is very often happening. I see with other facilitators as well. They have like what you call the middleman, somebody that knows already. It's like an ambassador who wants to promote you, wants to bring you forward. And in general, that always comes forward after they themselves start playing with the bricks and have this story about this I don't know, this duck. You see the duck clearly here. And for them it starts to live, and because it's also something you have to experience. And my strategy for because I'm very often inside a company, like the most scrum masters and agile coaches are for a longer time in the company. And then still, it's very difficult to sell a whole day workshop. And what I try very often then is to do, hey, can we do for the next 3 Wednesdays in a row, do a 45 or a 90-minute session? And I first start with the very easy part, like the individual model and the skills building, and then the individual model. And they talked about it, and they find this already super interesting because they had totally new insights from others. And they're curious. They come next Wednesday, and then we do maybe with a couple of these models, we do like a mapping. So how do they stand towards each other? Because like this, it's a different view than it is like this, or it is like this. What happened to that model? What happened to the story? And they go like, wow, this is giving us new insights. And then I do a third Wednesday, and I do maybe a shared model, and they at once have a consensus about everything they were talking about. And they go like, wow, this is a powerful tool. And then I say, would it be interesting to do a whole strategy session together? And then it's not hard to say no, but then it's like for them, they understand the value of it. I think from my feeling, what I notice with my clients, it is also sometimes do they is it safe enough to try, and do they have the feeling of this could benefit? Because it's also a challenge to just
Yes.
hire Donna that you don't know and then have her for a 1 day retreat with you. Like, it must be it's also their reputation on the line, at least with me, that is normally. And it's also sometimes I get away with that because some of my clients stay more than 10 years. So they go, hey, got something new, let's do that. That makes it interesting as well. Really cool. If you're thinking about inclusion and safety, how does that work with Lego Series Play and education? Like, you work with them. For me, it's a prerequisite, but how does that work for you, the inclusion and the safety? Because it's a theme that I think is coming up very often in education of adults.
So, I mean, just I think the method itself is so important because every voice is heard. And I think typically when someone is not feeling included, they're sort of on the sideline and they're afraid to voice their opinion. And with human-centered design, of course, we have a lot of methods to get everyone to share, right? You might do
Yeah.
silent brainstorming. You try to keep the process going so that one person doesn't sort of take over with their ideas and their opinions. And so what I love about this method is it just sort of equalizes it for everyone. And whatever your, role is, whatever your leadership, level is, when you're in that room and you have a facilitated method and you have some agreements you've come to before you begin the process, I think it creates some safety. When people know exactly what's going to happen and that you can, and I think that's what a good facilitator does, is welcome people into the room. It's really the art of gathering. There's a book about it. It just, how do you make that environment feel safe when people come in? It can be kind of scary, possibly, maybe if the leadership is going to be in the room too, but it's all that pre-planning. It's ensuring that leadership understands, like, we're just a seat at the table. We are open to this. We're not going to have outside observers. We're not here to document something that you do wrong, but it's really a chance for us to grow together. And I think when you have leadership set the stage, and then you're able to come in and say, and guess what? We're actually going to do something different today that is going to be, not your typical just sit and take notes and come away with a lot of things on your to-do list. I think it's really freeing for people. But when they have that first opportunity to share, and then when you have those ground rules that you don't have to share what you don't want to share, but everyone has an opportunity. And I think the other thing I love so much about it is everyone brings something to the table. When we create a shared model, or everyone is bringing something that they're really passionate about and that they care about. And I remember a session with a team. We were doing a pretty complex school district challenge around just bringing some of our special needs programs together. And it was one person on the team, and she was the only person in that role in the school district. And she said, "This is the first time that I've seen myself represented in this, this challenge and what we need to accomplish." And so it was, I think when people see that it's the first time they can see that their role matters, that they play a big part of it. Yeah. Another powerful one was after a full day of team building, a team had built this system. And one of the scenarios was, well, what if this person retires? And then we play out the scenario of what happens, and that person is connected to so many different things in the system. And then when you remove that person, you realize all that knowledge goes. There's no cross training. There's a big gap here. And so that may be something you could have done with like a systems map, but it's very powerful when you do it and you actually see the actions and the connections. And so I think and then everyone walks away going, wow, we had no idea you did so much. you made it look easy.
Yeah.
Right.
A friend of mine works with the ideas, and he get the ideas inside companies. He has a special company about it, and he says there must be a graveyard of a flip chart with all great ideas. And the best ideas are the ideas that get a follow-up and that people start doing. It's a completed idea. That's the best idea, he said. The ones on paper, they're boring. And I found it that if you do Lego, more ideas are pursued by also doing, because people have already, as you said with this story, when they see the whole thing collapsing because you take that one part out, they go like, the sense of urgency, the sense of importance is so much different than just mapping it out. Because
Right.
then it's also on two dimensions. It's just on paper. It's an exercise. But when their building starts collapsing what they build, and they put the time and effort in it, they go like, I don't want that happening in the real world. And for me, that is also always that part of the power and the magic of Lego and Lego series play, that evokes that new behavior, and that and a different sense in a different sense of urgency. And I think in companies that you work and I work, that are at this moment in great change and have this super big demanding thing. I cannot imagine how many demands you guys have now in the US. It's there's a big game changer going on in town, I assume. What makes it also interesting times to live in. Wow, thank you for your insights. It's really, I'm also careful of time, because I know you have soon another call to go to, and I don't want to eat up all your time. So that's why I wrote a question down on forehand, and it's like, if you, in your work, you work a lot with learning. You're busy with the future of people learning, especially adults. You will. I'm pretty sure you have a vision on what the global changes of that are, and things that are going to be important in the upcoming time. So, what would be your advice so we can sleep safe tonight? Because we know now everything that we need to know.
Wow, what a great question. So I think I need to build that. Like
Sure.
that model of what to sleep safe tonight. I think change, like I always say, turn challenges into opportunities, right? And I think that's the first reframing
Turn
of,
challenges into opportunities. That's a good
right.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really taking, and I do this hopes and fears exercise too. It's, what are your hopes and what are your fears? And I always say fears are also the sort of your work list, right? It's your, this is what I need to accomplish. So, we can't just live in a fear of, this is happening to the company, these are, we're just going to sit back and let it happen. You've really got to be able to say, like, let's reframe that as an opportunity for, maybe there's a new market, or maybe there's something we need to focus back on that's more, central to our services that we provide. Or, I told you I work with AI quite a bit, AI in education, and doing workshops around design thinking and AI. And it's it's a tool, I think, that can help us to think about the future. Sometimes I use it as just a thought partner when I don't have you to talk to, or someone else. And I'm looking for, what am I leaving out of this scenario, or what should I be thinking about, or, what are some other ideas to help me jumpstart my thinking? So I think, there's some tools out there that we can sort of take advantage of too, just to help us as we go into, so many changing times. And I think there's a lot going on globally that anyone who could sit down for a day or two with Lego Serious Play would probably be able to start turning a challenge into an opportunity. So that
Yeah.
would be my advice, I guess. Just, yeah, do that and find time.
Turning challenges into opportunities, and that is a perfect thing take with me tonight and sleep over it. And it helps me already in choosing in priority. So it helps also to make the priority. What does worry me also, and what can I make that into an opportunity? And thank you so much for that, Donna. Thank you that you made all this time for us. I'm sure I'm going to ask you back again because you have so much knowledge and so much wisdom that we can tap into. Thank you for your time, and love to see you again soon.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it, and good luck to everyone as you take on your next challenge.
Thank you.